It's weird to think I finally broke this series down almost entirely, but it's not over yet. The last two to check off my list before I'll go and 100% all the games for a complete retrospective is Burnout 1 and 2 respectively. Due to the nature of not having as much to say for both of the games as the rest, I will put them as one and we'll cover them one after the other. It's a damn shame nobody paid quite as much attention to the first two games. Wonder if they made PC ports if people would give a shit about them. The spark of the entire series, Burnout 1, like any other beginning, is rough around the edges. The event lineup is rather basic and a bit of a nuisance after you've played it for a good bit. It's very plain and makes no effort to mix things up, only being championships with races with face-offs on the side, but even those aren't much different. Crash detection is off the fucking rails and loves to end your life on anything it knows it can get you on, making modes that are heavier on your driving, survival especially, come to a close with even the slightest bump of anything at the wrong angle. Handling physics are alright, but a bit too tight as drifts are not very easy to hold for long and some cars drive very janky. This is the only Burnout game before Dominator that really sported any sort of difficulty, even if it is easy most of the time. Car designs are rather generic, and so is the lineup itself, sporting really nothing out of the ordinary unless you like your average car from 1997. They're not terrible, but they don't really stick out in any way. The traffic selection is a bit awkward, only having European-esque vehicles besides the pickup truck, which oddly only spawns in European maps. The tow truck and bus would seem like interesting additions that would serve some kind of difference to normal cars besides handling, perhaps the ability to shove traffic out of the way, but no. They're not that fun to drive and are more prone to eating shit as their hit resistance is as good as any other vehicle in the game. The tracks flip-flop between mediocre and good, River City and Gridlock being some of my favorites, and in comparison, Interstate in itself is an extremely bland and uninteresting map. Marathon tracks are arguably at their worst in Burnout 1, being upwards of 10 minutes with insanely long lap times and painful amounts of traffic, placed with the sole purpose of fucking you over. Thanks, Alex Ward. Lots of maps sport long or sharper turns time to time, which handling is not made for, but it's not really enough to kill the gameplay. Sound design is decent besides most of the vehicles sharing a similar engine sound and certain sounds getting tiring to listen to once you hear them enough, namely the tire screech that makes me want to gouge my fucking ears out. Crashing sounds are rather weak, but I'm probably asking a bit much from a 2001 title. Unique songs per track are all fantastic except one, the casual song for Interstate called 66 Kicks. Chris Paradise renamed it for some fucking reason Chicken George. The boost is really annoying, namely due to the fact that it silences the music, casual or intense, in turn for a heartbeat noise with something else that sounds like a door jingle out of some 80s shitbox. If you haven't played Burnout 1, you're honestly not missing much, so if you don't play it, don't really feel bad about it. It's a relatively short-lived experience.
Gaming.
Burnout 2 was the last game of the series I played, even after Crash, fun fact. While improving on everything Burnout 1 slacked with, it wasn't without its problems. The career still suffers a bit of a similar issue from Burnout 1, where championships feel a bit on the bland side, though the event lineup is far more strewn about with variety and not just, here's like 10 championships of the same shit, go crash and die or something. Sometimes the hit detection can be janky in Burnout 2 as well as Burnout 1, but here it's nowhere near as prominent. The crash camera is by far the worst Burnout has ever seen, even worse than Burnout 3. You can't see a goddamn thing most of the time, and it's even more insulting when it interrupts replays where camera work is at its best. Pursuit mode is a great new addition, but every time you get hit on the target they do this annoying rubber band shit where it cuts off your boost and they zip ahead. I get why it's in place, but they could have done without the boost cutoff, as the game will cut it off at some of the worst times, forcing you to refill your entire boost bar now and then. Car designs are fantastic with the exception of a couple of classic cars, but those have never been my thing. The vehicles have more defined style and feel less like car.png. Traffic variety is very fitting for an American setting, and the variety is not meant such bounds since, unfortunately, not even in Burnout Paradise. Custom cars have great liveries, but they honestly could have done with some fake brands on them to really set them in stone, akin to Burnout 3. A couple of the custom car liveries borderline bad, but none of them are so absolutely repulsive I'd avoid using the car entirely. I wish they could have carried a color variety that equates to the stock vehicles, but I guess 3 other color options in the Xbox port's good enough. The track selection is rather varied, which I appreciate a lot, but if there's one track that's nothing but internal pain, it's Crystal Summit. Crystal Summit's turns are way too tight for the game's physics, and most of the race is spent hugging the walls until you get onto a feasible straight to actually collect some speed. Driving this track in automatic is a literal suicide, or else you'll be spending the entire time driving painfully slow, especially if you're newer to the game. Thankfully, marathons were not presented in this game and were likely what point-to-points took the place of. Weather options were a great addition that never met the light of day again, but only having 2 variations kinda sucks and can still get repetitive time to time. Sound design gets even better, but of course ear-grating tire screech akin to Burnout 1 still remains in its place. There's still a composed song or two from Burnout 2 that I wasn't a fan of, but that's a given as that goes for pretty much any game. Car engine sounds change up a little bit from Burnout 1, but they still sound too vaguely similar to one another. Rest of my thoughts, as you know, would be rather nitpicky, I'm trying to keep most of those little bits here and there out until I get to my entire series retrospective later this year. As some of you might not know, Burnout in itself turns 20 this year, and I'll be putting out a couple videos respectively to show the games the love that I've held with them since I was born. Now that Burnout is done, if you have any suggestions regarding games I should rip apart next, toss them my way. Need for Speed is definitely on my shit list, and same goes for some other games I think well deserve it. I hope to put out more casual content as well as try Twitch streaming, as I've said for like the 15th time now, and I still haven't done it? Fucking hell. Anyways, I'm not one to drag shit, so I've got more time to be wasting. I'll be around.